Rohan, welcome to the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Justin.
Yeah, dude, I'm excited to, it's so funny because obviously we've now hung out. It's usually reversed. I usually have somebody on the podcast, then I end up having them, we'll meet up somewhere or whatever. But you sponsored the event that we just ran, which was phenomenal. So thank you so much for that. And now I get to sit down with you and truly get to pick your brain and learn your journey and understand you a little bit deeper. It's usually the other way around. So this will be fun, man. But why don't we start with who is Rohan today? And then we'll break down how you got there.
Sweet, man. Yeah. The event was cool. Cool town, cool campus. Like, I don't know, we had some fun around
cool
that
campus,
whole thing.
The town,
yeah.
Lots of
yeah, the campus is cool for sure. But yeah, thanks for giving me the opportunity there. Who is Rohan today? So I run a company called GrowRev.com. We're a paid advertising agency specializing currently in direct response marketing for personal brands, and specifically brands that have a coaching or information product around it. We do have segments of the company that does SaaS and e-commerce and enterprise, et cetera. But this specific brand that everybody's known me for is that that's kind of who I am today. We've got some of the biggest names in the industry as clients, and been sharing this message around the world for a long time.
Yeah. So let's dive into the idea of entrepreneurship as you just rattled off there, right? Like you just say it so nonchalant, but these are all, very successful companies that you've kind of headed. What got you into this space, right? Like it's obviously very tech space, right? So what drew you to it, and what really was it about the entrepreneurial kind of thing that you wanted to attack?
Without kind of going too far back into the story, where I grew up in an extremely entrepreneurial background when I was younger, right? From 0 to 11. So that day I was born till I was 11 years old. I never saw my mom work in a day because my dad and my uncle built an extremely successful company back in India. They owned an airline at one point that got essentially hostile taken over by the Indian government. And then eventually my dad and his brother had a split, and he went on his own and built his own company. And the blowback from what happened initially kind of caused a bit of third world dangerousness, to keep it in a nice way, that my mom was like, we need to get out of this country. So they gave all of that up, sold everything, and moved to Canada. And, as a kid back then, it's like, I'd only ever traveled business or first class. I'd only stayed in resorts. I had maids, I had drivers. I'd this entire lifestyle that most kids just, you kind of come into not knowing what reality really was like. And went from that to completely shock factor, not realizing it, but moved into a place in Vancouver where today, if you go by, it's literally considered the lower socioeconomic part of like the city. But to me, I mean, subconsciously and consciously made no difference. I'm like, I'm leaving India, I'm going to North America. It's like, the Western dream of everybody's life out there. So came here, and then I started to notice things, where I started to see my mom work every single day, which I'd never seen before. I had to start taking care of my brother, kind of babysitting him, just because, things were really difficult, but my parents never really kind of talked about it. And which was a really hard thing to come to realization later on in my life. And I'm grateful for that experience. And the reason being is, at a young age, because I'd seen such a difference in polarity of lifestyle, it got me to the point where once I got to high school, I kind of had that itch or that like burning desire somewhere inside of me. And I just couldn't figure out what it was, but I just always wanted more. And I think the wanting more came from the subconscious pattern of coming from that world. So I started working at McDonald's at 14. I like anything that I could do to make quick cash, I was doing. Like I was that kid that was always working to make cash. And then my first big entrepreneurial breakthrough came at 15 when I bought, told the story plenty of times, and I did a pretty cool skit on it that's coming out on my Instagram, where I bought a pocket bike. So if you know what a pocket bike is, I bought them from a guy on Craigslist, and I just took it to school one day and just having fun, thinking my friends are going to have a good time with it. Ended up getting so much attention in the first couple of days of that thing where people wanted to buy it. And then I'm thinking to myself, okay, if I could either give the guys info, or I could figure out where he got it from, order them myself, turn around and sell it. And literally stayed up to like 3-4 in the morning, kind of figuring it out. And kind of, this is when you were still at like dial-up internet, almost like DSL was kind of first coming out to be, trying to figure out how to get it. And was able to get around, $30,000-ish worth of pocket bikes, loaned the money from my parents, and turned around and sold them to people in my school and my surrounding neighborhood, and made my first 6-figure year at 15. So
unreal. I didn't know that. That's incredible. Holy crap.
That was a pretty wild story doing that. Obviously that came with its own drawbacks in the sense that, when you're that young and you don't know, and you don't really have a relationship to money, because I clearly didn't, but I just knew I wanted it. It blew it all in a very short period of time. And then eventually that literally cost me to almost get expelled from school because I was doing ridiculous things. And where I started to just realize was, I was really just good at attention and gaining attention from other people, which is ironically what I do today, which is marketing, and I get attention from other people. And eventually that got into me doing door-to-door sales. And I got really good at that. And then I used to get poached by some of the biggest direct response companies, like direct sales companies. And then they built a company in the software world that was kind of like Kumon or Sylvan Learning. I'm sure you guys have those in the States. So very similar to that, but it was a software company. I helped them go from $2 to $25 million in 2.5 years. Alongside actually Dirk, who you've met with who now is one of our team members. And I just got bored. I really got bored at the art of one-to-one selling. Because I got to the point with my last company, which is the education company. I'd literally go to the appointment setting team and be like, give me the worst leads you possibly can. Like, they're probably not going to close. I just want this as a challenge, right? Like, that's kind of what I would do. Like, so they'd set it up and I'd go in there and still close them. And I think I was like top 3 salesman, like for months on months that I was ever there. Like, I don't think I ever dropped below the top 3 in performance. And then I started to kind of, dabble into the world of what else, if I'm good at one-to-one, there's got to be a way I could do one-to-many, not realizing I'd already done one-to-many at 15. Like, that's kind of what I did, right? Yeah. Because I had no idea what marketing was or anything else. And in that entire phase of going through all of this, like door-to-door sales, et cetera, I went to school to be a commercial airline pilot because that was my lifelong dream. And I realized that I love flying, but I didn't enjoy it as a career, and I didn't want to do it.
Yeah. So wait, hold on. I have to pay attention the whole time. Got it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I can't drink and work at the same time. No, that doesn't work. But that's kind of what ended up happening. So I started to get dabble into books with like Dan Kennedy and Jay Abraham and some other big named old school direct response marketers. And I was like, okay, this stuff makes a lot of sense. Like, there's a lot here. Started to do research. Obviously, internet marketing was starting to become a new thing. Got into internet marketing, started doing affiliate stuff in that world. And then eventually transitioned into doing it for small businesses. And it just kind of happened through, family and friends. Oh, Google, come and help me with my Google ads, or, social media, come and help me with my Facebook. Just kind of what ended up happening. I didn't even know what an agency was. And I'm just like, I've got all these people that I'm helping, and I'm like, I'm not charging them. I'm like, fuck this. I need to charge these people for my time at least.
What year are we talking now? Roughly
2013.
Okay. Yeah. So this is like early on, man. Like, there weren't many people doing it the way you guys do it.
Yeah, I did. So I did 2 years. I did just shy of 2 years of affiliates on my own. And I kind of got bored because it was zero-sum game. And it's like, it was me, my computer, and an ad network really that I'm working with, and some offers like that really got, and I missed the human interaction. And like, because from a salesperson, it's like you'd thrive on that. So that kind of happened. And then, so 2013, I transitioned into kind of just starting to help businesses. And I was like, well, how do I go get clients? I just didn't have a clue. I'm like, but I knew one thing. I did door-to-door sales. So I'm like, yeah, it can't be any different. So I was like, let's just go door-to-door selling again. So that's literally what I did. I went door knocking at all the business complexes around, the cities that I lived in, and got a handful of clients. And then, just kept working towards that. And then one thing led to another. Here we are, however many years later, managed over $50 million in ad spend last year. Done some of the biggest launches. One of the big launches we just did is a gentleman over your left shoulder there. His book launch. So it's been a fun journey. And, throughout that process, talking about just entrepreneurship, I've had other companies that I've built. A unicorn software company that, the big FB stole from me, which ended up in a different situation. So, but that's my entrepreneurial journey from where we are to where it's now.
It's wild, man. And I think the thing is, when you look at this journey, sales are involved in everything that you do. And the reality is, everybody goes, I hate sales, I hate sales, I hate sales, but everybody's a salesperson, right? Like, you're selling yourself literally constantly. So I want to talk a little bit about that, because clearly you're a master of the art. Were you trained? Was this just something you were naturally good at? And like, how did you figure it out?
No, I don't think I was ever trained in sales. Even when I did door-to-door sales, like when my mom first found out, because obviously I dropped out of college and then didn't tell my parents for like 2 months, and I just kept lying to them that I was going to school, but I was just driving to this door-to-door sales job for it just worked out that the timing was exactly the same time that I was supposed to be at school. And then eventually when they found out that I was doing door-to-door sales, she's like, what the actual F are you doing? Right. Like with your life. And I was like, I just think this is a lot more fun. But even with door-to-door sales, it's like, it was one of those things where I kind of put my back up against the wall and I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life. But I also, like coming from a cultural background where it's like, you kind of don't really want to let your parents down either. It was like the double-edged sword in my head. Sure. And I just knew I had a skill set that I was just really good at human interaction, obviously kind of going down that whole world. So I was like, sales just kind of work, and it just worked in my favor. So it's like, I never really got taught, like, did I get taught the nuances of door to door, how to do it? Yes. I get taught the nuances of the in-home selling. Yes. But it's like, once you get in front of that person, the process is the process. And it's just, it's building rapport, understanding how to get a person to like you. Like, that's really all that matters.
Yeah, 100%. And then like I was in direct sales starting at 18 or 19, something like that. And I did it for a couple of years, and I learned everything I needed to about communication more than anything else. Sure, you understand 100%. Like always ask for the sale and all that stuff, but it's really about open communication and allowing people to get to know you on a certain level. So they go, yeah, whatever it is, I'll take it. Right. And like, it's this very, very strange kind of thought process. But now here you are, like you said, you're working with people like Ed Milet and Tony Robbins and Dean Graziosi, who's actually over my other shoulder. He's right here. But you work with these individuals one-on-one. Let's talk a little bit about the networking that you've been able to do. I think networking at a high level, I actually just spoke about this at PodFest. Obviously networking at a super high level, I think it's an art, but it's also, and I can't tell, honestly, it's funny. I talked about it at PodFest, but I can't tell if it's something that naturally came to me, where you're able to kind of be in the right room and then connect to the next level. But I want to talk to you about that, because I think a lot of people look at somebody like me and they go, how do you do this? Like, how do you get on that level? And you're somebody who's done it as well. So I'd love to hear your take on how you got in the room and then obviously continue to stay in the room at a high level.
Yeah. So networking was one of those things where it's like, I didn't really know what the heck that even meant until I can't remember what book I read, but it's like, or probably even may have been like Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki. And where he says, your network is your net worth. And like, that kind of like just stuck with me for the longest time, because no matter what happens, you can kind of go down that route. And it's one of those skill sets that I think every business owner should look at. It's like, yes, can we run ads, which I do a lot of? Yes. Can we, do direct outreach? Yes, you can do a lot of, but nothing is going to build a company faster than building a strong network, in my opinion. It's much more longer because you have to build a lot more relationships with people. But when you get to the point where everyone is talking about you, you can't lose. Yeah. Right. Like, it's that reputation you can't lose. So one of the things that happened to me with the specific, like even with GrowRev as a company, in 2018, kind of like Q4, Q1, between the transition of those years, what the original brand was called Rohan Sheth Consulting before we transitioned it over to GrowRev. And, we had a big, massive churn inside of the company with clients. And one thing we realized at that point in time is, myself, my partner at the time, the team, we just kind of lost that fire and that drive. And it came down to the fact that we were just selling anybody and everybody that we could help, because Facebook was so fucking good at that point in time that you could literally just run ads, but we weren't working with the right people, right? Yeah. Like, that was the big thing. And then that kind of where I kind of went back to my, like, the thought of, okay, well, who do I want to work with? And how can I be around them and get that attention from them? And that's when I really figured out, okay, I want to work with a lot of these personal brands that are behind you. And, just because I understand that world extremely well, and I've studied a lot of it, so I could kind of make that big difference. And how do I get there? So it's like, you just do some research. Where are they hanging out? What groups are they in? What, events are they attending? Start showing up all the time. Like, yes, it's a front end investment, but just start showing up, because eventually, if you're there once a quarter and they keep seeing you every single time, eventually they're going to start figuring out, okay, this guy's here to stay for a long time. He's not just one of those guys that just shows up once and essentially fucks off.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what happened. And then eventually, so you get one epic win, even with the brands that we have today. We went to bat for Dean Graziosi in 2020 and, didn't charge him for like and he'll stand by this, giving us a wicked testimonials on my website, because like we literally went to bat to go help him out with something that happened and didn't charge him through the entire process. And I said, Dean, the only thing is I don't want to charge you. If I can make this work and if I can make this a win for you, all I want in exchange is, a small piece of your business that we can run traffic for or something. Like just find a win on the other side. Ended up being able to help him out. And since then, man, it has opened me doors like I've never seen before. And I already had a pretty decent network before that. But what's come since even doing like that, doing that little play, it's like, a lot of people don't want to do things for free, but they don't realize it's not free. You're preemptively showing them the value you can bring to them in their life, that when they do decide to work with you, they're going to be your biggest cheerleader, no matter what, for the rest of their life.
Yeah. And then on the back end, make sure you deliver, right?
Oh, 100%.
Dude, there's so many people, especially like in the coaching space and all that stuff. They're like, yo, let me work for you for free. People reach out to me. Hey, let me do some stuff for you for free. And you kind of look into it and you're like, you're full of it. Like you're trying to truly get a start. You know what I mean? And look, if you're super skilled, definitely use this tactic, right? Like I started doing stuff for free. That's how I got into some of the things that I'm doing. And then again, like leveling up into these networks of people. And there is, and I hate to say it this way, but there's levels, right? Like there's levels of entrepreneurial 100%. People, right? And obviously Dean being in the top tier with some of these people like Tony and the other ones. I mean, it's a long game. And I love that you said that, because immediately people like think about the podcast space. Immediately people are like, oh, I can start. And then I'll just start interviewing all these people that I want to interview or whatever. It's a long game, and you nurture those relationships, and it's one step at a time. So that's totally key, man. And then obviously from there, like you said, you show up and you keep showing up and you consistently show up for these individuals. Yeah. So how long did it take you to start working with the individuals that you wanted to work with versus just Joe Schmo?
So a little bit of a backstory to this whole thing. So in 2018, when this kind of happened, was, we knew our background. So when I brought my business partner on at the time, his background was events. He ran, traffic for the F1, Sky Sports, Tennis TV, the Olympics, some big names. So it's like he had that, big event world experience. But it's like I had all these personal brands that I knew I could speak to. And so we're like, hey, let's just go after events in personal brands. Like, what are they doing? So I literally just figured out, I said, where are the top 2 companies? All I wanted, I had them on my list, like target list. I'm like, I'm going to get one of the 2. And I eventually ended up working with both, but I'm going to get, where are they hanging out? I found a mastermind that one of them was hanging out. And I literally just showed up 3 events back to back and continued to have that conversation. And literally took me 0 to 9 months essentially to land them as a client. And then that literally just turned our business around. And kind of made that, and maybe it's one of those things where it's like, I just do the research, like do the time. Who are the people that you want to talk to, right? Like go down that route. And yeah, within 9 months, we had those epic wins, got the other client, which is bigger than them. And then, it just kind of snowballed from there. And then don't be afraid to ask for referrals, because all these guys are hanging out at the top. If you have an epic win, go and ask for referrals. Like right now as a company, we will, like on average manage around 50 million a year. We spend 0 on ads for ourselves current date.
Wow.
Right? Because all of our lead flow, 100% of our lead flow is referrals. And they're not small accounts either, because, they have to be at a certain level to come. But it's people like, oh, it's easy for you to say. Yeah, but you didn't see the 5 years of me literally being, and I'm still, we had this conversation right on the podcast. I still show up at events like every single time. Like, whenever I can be in person, I'm there in person, because nothing takes that human connection away that you can ever replace.
Yeah. And you have to make the investment in yourself. Look, if you're just getting started, it's easy for you and I to have this conversation, be like, show up at the events and do the things. And well, yeah, it costs a little bit of money, but it's worth it in the long run, building those relationships and making sure you show up and so on and so forth, man. So such key takeaways just from that thought process alone. I think people are afraid to invest in themselves.
100%.
And, you working with these high level individuals, I imagine every single one of them invest massive into their own personal growth, showing up into their relationships, all that stuff. Is that accurate?
Oh, without a doubt. I'm literally going on next Thursday to Scottsdale. And every time I go to Scottsdale, even if I can't meet with Dean, I make sure like someone from their team, I'm catching up for lunch. And it's like, they're going to hear about it. Like at the end of the day, those guys are going to hear about it, but it's the effort that counts. right? Like even if you take an extra hour and go and drive, meet them at the office or go like do that. And like, even in the side of like themselves, like they're investing in themselves to get better, and they're going to tell you where to show up eventually, right? It's like, they want you to come along because if you've helped them win, they want you to win.
Yeah. And oh God, that's so true, man. And that's the one thing. And I just spoke, so I got interviewed by this, and you met him, Paul Klein from Visible TV, and they filmed me for their docuseries and all that stuff. And I just watched a couple of my episodes that were out. Like, you know, when you watch yourself, you like cringe. I'm like, oh God. Yeah. But I was like, you know what, I'll do it. I sat down with Lauren and we watched it. And I just spoke about that. Like, I think a lot of times people who aren't in those circles, they immediately go, oh, they're evil, or money's evil, or, you know, they're in it for themselves only. And it's the exact opposite. Like once people reach a certain type of success, they're like, how can I bring other people that are putting in the work with me? How do I, you know, bring them along and help them? And it's really, really true, man. So the interesting thing is you get to be surrounded by successful people all the time. Because of this podcast, I get the same opportunity. So there's a question that I ask every single guest on the show, and I'd love to ask you. It's a two-part question. The first one is, what is your definition of success? And the second question, or the second part of the question, is, what are 3 things you do every single day to ensure that success for yourself?
So my definition of success, really, to me, success is one of those things is, what are you doing to make your life happy, like make you live a happier life every single day? Like that's really what it comes down to. I don't care if you want to earn an extra $500 a month and just live that life, and that's happiness and that's success. Because as long as you're happy living it, that's really all that matters, right? Are you going to have your highs and your lows in the middle? Without a damn doubt. But don't chase success based on, you know, what Instagram's telling you or what TikTok's telling you, because that is going to put you into a situation where you're going to end up more depressed than anything else, because you're chasing an external outcome. On the other side of it, for me, success really means is like, how much of a difference can I truly make in the entire universe before the day I die? Right. That's something that I've really understood. And, you know, the quickest way for me to do that was have brands and people like the ones that have this massive influence that I can take my skill set and amplify their knowledge or their skill set as well. So I'm making it as a byproduct of what I'm doing. So I know that every single human, every single day, I'm making a difference in it. Even though, I live in Vancouver and work out of this small office, doesn't matter. It's what am I doing for the rest of the universe? That for me is success. And that gives me fulfillment every single day to get up and do what I'm doing. And the 3 things that I do every day that, you know, make sure that I do that. One, I'm always making sure you know, I'm having that as a thought in the back of my head, you know, whether it's for my clients or my team. You know, building a company is cool. Having all the perks that come with building a successful company is cool. And there's been some fucking rough times, don't get me wrong, where it's like, how am I even going to make payroll kind of situation, right? Like you get into those modes, but it's like, whatever. But it's like, at the end of the day, am I still making that difference? That's all that matters, because the universe is going to give back what you put out, and you call it woo woo, whatever. It's metaphysics, and it just is. That's one. And number 2 for me is making sure that I'm the best version of myself. So when I come into my office every single day, no matter what happens at home, my team knows we're here to serve all of our clients. That's really all it comes down to. Yes, can there be difficult times with clients, and, you know, difficult times, or Facebook can be a pain in the ass, or whatever the situation is. But at the end of the day, are we coming in with our best versions of ourselves? Because that's how we can make a bigger difference. And the third thing that I do to make sure is, for me specifically, is, and it's something that I've learned, and COVID kind of really taught me this in the recent years, is taking the time for myself to understand what that next level is, right? Not everybody needs that next level, but because I've got such a big appetite of what I want to achieve, is taking that time. So it's like, you know, I travel a lot. So it's like when on planes, I usually don't buy Wi-Fi, and I just sit there and journal, or kind of, you know, goal set, or kind of whatever that is. And using that time, you know, I've learned stuff from Elon Musk and Bill Gates and all these guys. Like one of the things they do is, you know, I learned from a mentor of mine, where it's own the traits of the great. Who are the ones that you're putting on that pedestal? You have those traits, whatever traits they have, you have them inside of you. Find them and bring them forward. So that's one of the things that I usually like to do. And as much as a third one's not daily, I do it in chunks, but then I make sure that it's broken down, that I can review them daily.
Oh yeah. No, dude, I love it. And that's so key, and so many great takeaways. I wanted to talk tactical before we get to the end here. So obviously you're talking a lot about Facebook, but you guys do ads for TikTok and Instagram and maybe Twitter. YouTube. I don't even know. Yeah, I don't do Twitter, the Twitter everything. Yeah. So how do people know what platform they should be running ads on? Is it all of them? Is there a specific thing they should look at and be like, look, let me attack here? Is it a different kind of brand thing? What should they be looking at?
The biggest thing that I would probably suggest is making sure that you're looking at, do a little bit of research, right? Like if we were having this conversation even 2 years ago, I'd say just go Facebook. Like this,
Yeah.
I was so bullish on Facebook. They've had some issues in their own, but it's like do a little bit of research. Okay, like who are you selling? What are you selling? Is it high intent? Now, if it's high intent and people are searching for it, you need to be on Google, right? Like you just have to be, because the reason being is if people are searching for it, figure out a way to get to the top, get the attention, get you conversions. The easiest way to launch, in my opinion, Facebook. Right now, the cheapest is TikTok. In terms of cost effectiveness. However, TikTok is a very creative heavy platform. So it's like you have to look like it's an organic piece of content for that platform. And then if you're really good on video, man, I am so bullish on YouTube right now. It's not even funny. We're about to launch an internal, we shared the offer that we're about to launch at your event. That entire offer, we're going to launch heavily on TikTok just because I love shooting content, right? Like I just love it. So, it also shows you and yourself, and people can know you, like you, and trust you right off the bat.
Yeah. And it's funny, obviously the only ad thing I've ever looked into personally was Facebook, like trying to understand the back end. And that's why people hire people like you, because it's insanely confusing. And you could lose a lot of money if you're not doing it the right way. But, and also with the whole TikTok thing, if you are a creative person, TikTok is a great way to go. Because I've stopped on ads, not realizing it was an ad. And then all of a sudden this little thing popped up on the bottom and I was like, oh, I just thought I was absorbing content, right? Like I just thought it was somebody's funny video or whatever I was looking at. I don't even know. But now with TikTok being affordable, obviously it's not going to be affordable forever. So I imagine you should hop in now and give it a try and see what can come up. But what's the target audience on TikTok? Like I'm on TikTok because of what I do. And I was like, you know what, let me just play with it. Are there other people my age on TikTok? Probably.
So our TikTok, I just before I came out to your event, I think it was like a couple of weeks before I came out to your event, our TikTok reps flew in from Toronto and met us, took us out for dinner. And we were doing some kind of the typical shit I do with the reps, and they give us new data and what's coming and all this good stuff. And one of the things that they told me was TikTok's current audience right now it's about a 49% audience of people that are over the age of 35 earning over $150,000 a year. When they just told me those two stats, I was like, game over. I'm going bullish on TikTok. And the reason being is if that's the case, and you can understand it because it's such an addictive platform. If that's where the kids are hanging out, that's where the parents are going to hang out. Right. In 2018, 2019, when Snapchat was massive, we crushed it on Snapchat back then. And we're working on going back there again because they're starting to pick up again. A lot of kids went to Snapchat to converse with their friends, but then the parents had to converse with their kids on Snapchat as well. So that's what we understand. It's just like, if kids are hanging out there, 99% of the time, the adults are there as well. You just got to figure out how to get in front of them.
Yeah, dude, I love it. And I didn't realize that about TikTok. That's wild. What a crazy statistic. And I mean, it totally makes sense, I guess, to think about. It's funny because Facebook, the young kids aren't on Facebook, at least what I'm noticing. Right. So it's like all like my age and older, it feels hanging out, but it's such an interesting space. Cause I say to people all the time, they're like, my target audience isn't on Facebook or any social media, really. They're only on LinkedIn. I go, wrong. I go, are you on Facebook? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, there you go. Like everybody really is on Facebook. I think it's one of those things that's hard to cut off. Like we've been attached to it for so long that it's hard to cut off, but yeah, man, I love that. So I wrap up every single interview with the same question, but before we get there, let's get to the important stuff. How do people get a hold of you? Where do they follow you? How can they work with GrowRev? What's all the good information?
Yeah, the most active platform for me is Instagram. It's just because that's where I originally built a lot of my personal brand from. So Rohan_Sheth. My YouTube channel, we're starting to put some more, pretty high produced content on there. TikTok for sure. You'll see a lot of my content. I've kind of gone, like I said, bullish on TikTok. So that's been pretty fun. And if you just want to reach out, just kind of DM me. I'm pretty, like I said, very, very active in the DMs on Instagram. That'd be the quickest way. And then if you want to work with us, obviously, or take a look at some level to see if we can help you with your advertising or offers or funnels, etc. GrowRev.com would be the quickest way. And someone from my team will definitely be jumping on a call with you.
Sweet. Now, real quick, I want to point out, like we talked about you working with, Dean and Tony and all these guys. You work with everybody. It's not just you have to be at that level to work with you guys. I just want to make that clear. Like definitely reach out if you're looking to blow up your business, your events, whatever. Definitely check it out, man. So like I said, I wrap up every single interview with the same question. Since the show is called The Growth Now Movement, that question is, in your life, what has been your biggest moment of growth?
Ooh, that's a good question. So my biggest moment of growth in my life, if we're talking about it based on the context of what this podcast has gone on with, I would say my journey from dropping out of college and going into door-to-door sales is probably the biggest moment of growth. And the reason being is, now, like, I look back at door-to-door sales today, is not just a skill set that got me really good at sales, but it got me really good as a skill set as being a true human being and not being afraid of the BS that we're fed. I, to a point where when my brother turned 17, I had him go do door-to-door sales for me. Why? Because it gives you that rhino thick skin to a point where it's like, people are going to hate on you and people are going to talk bad about you and all this bullshit that's going to come at you. But if you can just, throw like water on a duck's back kind of context, nothing can phase you in this world, man. When you can go through COVID, you're going to win. When you can go through recession, you're going to win, because at the end of the day, you can back yourself up. That was the biggest point in my life where I went from an extremely introverted human being to an extremely extroverted human being once I went through that phase. And I realized, everything that I want is out there. I just got to go get it.
Yeah, that's so true, man. If it weren't for direct sales, I don't know what I would be doing. I'd probably be broke, living in like a shelter or something, because it built me up. Like, it's a very uncomfortable thing at first. And if you're able to get uncomfortable and learn the skills, and then all of a sudden that comfort comes with everything. Like you said, man, like, if shit hits the fan again, God forbid, but if shit hits the fan again, you can always crawl yourself back out if you have those basic level skills. So true. So Rohan, thank you so much, man, for coming on and sharing your journey and everything else in between. I appreciate you and all that you're doing for the world. Like you said, to make that impact, even if it's through other people. By the way, you should be sharing the stage with these people. And I see it happening. I see what you're doing. I see it happening. But dude, thank you so much for doing what you do.
Thanks for having me, Justin. Looking forward to a lot more ahead.
Best.